You're listening to The Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with Lyndia Grant.
Good evening, Radio 1 listeners. Thank you for tuning in to The Lyndia Grant Show. Today is Friday, October 6, 2023, and we're here on Spirit 1340, the oldest gospel station in the country. We've been around for more than 40 years. And we've got another exciting show for you. My guests today are Dr. Adrienne Scott, Medical Director for the Johns Hopkins Wilmer Eye Institute in Bel Air, Maryland. She's going to talk to us about diabetes retinopathy. I want to say hello to Dr. Scott. Welcome back to the show. So happy you could make your busy schedule possible that you could interview with us today. How are you, Dr. Scott?
I'm doing great, Ms. Grant. Thank you so much for the invitation to come back on the show. Hello to everybody out there listening.
All right. We're so excited about it. She's going to come on in the second half. But first, we're going to go to our weekly commentator, Dr. Julianne Malvo. She's going to talk to us about politics, and wasn't it a lot going on this week? I'll give you a little background. Dr. Malvo is a nationally known economist and former dean of a new College of Ethnic Studies at Los Angeles University, Los Angeles, and she's originally from San Francisco, California. She's one of two President Emeritus from Bennett College in Raleigh, North Carolina, and she earned her PhD in economics. She's a world traveler and speaker, president of Push Excel, the youth organization founded by Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, out of Chicago, Illinois. So I want to say hello to you, Dr. Julianne, and welcome to today's show.
Hey, Lyndia, how you doing? These politics these days, it's just, I don't even know what to say. But on Tuesday, Congress adjourned. How come? Well, they voted out Kevin McCarthy. 8 Republicans voted with the Democrats to oust him. He had... This was to be expected. Matt Gaetz said he was going to introduce a motion. He did introduce it. Some of the usual suspects didn't support Gaetz. In fact, I thought Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of those others would have, but they didn't. Still, there were 8 Republicans who abandoned McCarthy, and so he's no longer the speaker. He gave a rambling, defensive, but he held his head up, talk after the vote, in which he said he was proud of his work. He loved having been the speaker. He said one of the things he said, which was really true, he said Gaetz and his friends are not conservative. They're just angry and chaotic. And that's what we have now in the Congress. We have chaos. The split in terms of the vote is such that they're not able to do anything until they elect a speaker. And who are they going to elect? I don't see anybody stepping up. A couple people were asked by Manu Raju of CNN as they came out, are you interested in being a speaker? And to a person, they all said no. Now, that's a lie. Some of them are interested, but I think they're trying to figure it out. Just figure out who can get the most votes. Democrats aren't going to save anybody, and they shouldn't be expected to. Hakeem Jeffries had told them not to vote for McCarthy, and they held in formation beautifully. Several people, including AOC, Pramil Jayapal, others, said McCarthy had been a poor speaker anyway. So he, in his talk, blamed the president. He blamed the Senate. He blamed everybody but his predicament except for himself. Now, we're all grateful to him for making the deal to keep government open for 45 days. That's all that does is kicks the can down the road. It doesn't change anything. Matt Gaetz says he thinks the rules need to be changed. They should put him out. That would be the rule change that could work. But what we see is, as I said, what we see is chaos. It's unfortunately chaos, but it is chaos, and that's where we are. Meanwhile, the previous president is in court. He visited court in New York. Tish James, of course, has brought charges against him for fraud. And the judge has already said the issue is not whether he's guilty, it's what kind of fine he's going to have to pay. Of course, the Trump camp has basically made this a fundraising opportunity. He's got pictures with himself in court on mugs, and people are buying them. So he sees this whole legal thing as a joke. He won't see it as a joke if they fine him $250 million, which he may or may not pay, given the way that he has inflated his net worth. Anyway, back to the Hill. Of course, Senator Dianne Feinstein made her transition over the weekend. She was my mayor in San Francisco, and I enjoyed her. I worked with her a little bit. I got on her nerves because radicals got on her nerves, radicals and progressives. She was really a moderate, really just a centrist. She did some great things in San Francisco, basically got the cable car system running again. It was shutting down because of finance, and got the 1984 Democratic Convention in San Francisco. I'll never forget it. Oh, what a night. 1984 was the year actually when I ran for political office. Of course, I lost. But it was, she was a good mayor, a good person. And the most thing I could say about her, the best thing I could say, rather, not the most, is that she was kind. She was really a kind person. Before she made her transition, she had announced that she would not be running for re-election in 2024. Mm-hmm. So several Democrats, of course, had said they wanted her seat. That was Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, and our own Barbara Lee. Schiff and Porter, Schiff has raised about $30 million, Porter about $15 million. Barbara Lee's books say that she's raised under $2 million. I don't know if that's because she jumped in later than the other two or what's going on, but the Congressional Black Caucus, the California Black Women's Network, and others said, we want Barbara Lee. Barbara Lee speaks for me. Well, instead, what we got was a young sister, LaFonza Butler, who was the former head of Emily's List. She's 44, out lesbian. That brings a different voice to the table. And she doesn't know whether she's going to run for the seat again. Now, when we talked about Barbara Lee, Governor Gavin Newsom said he wanted a caretaker in the seat, which we all found insulting. Black women have been taking care of America since we've been here. Lots of people just found that insulting. He didn't do that for Alex Padillo, who is now the senator, when he appointed him to replace Kamala Harris. So why, in this situation, he claims he doesn't want to give anybody an edge in the coming race. So LaFonza Butler, Senator LaFonza Butler now, she was sworn in on Tuesday, and it's going to be interesting to see what direction she goes in. She was asked if she plans to run for the seat, and she said she didn't know. But here's what we know about her. She is a union leader, SEIU. She also has flipped her side and gone to work for Airbnb and Uber, who both companies have been rather anti-union. So I wanted to say, about her. But we can't rush to judgment, and, the sister code is that we don't say anything ugly about her. We just wait and see. And so the Senate is in session. Of course, the House is not. We'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things is really interesting. So back to, no, we're not going to go back to that. The chaos in the Congress, they'll work it out. They'll be back next week. They were sent home by Patrick McHenry, who is the interim speaker, and we'll see what they come up with. Mm-hmm. Now,
is that both houses? Is that both houses?
No, just the Congress. The Senate is still in session. But okay. It's not clear what they can do. Any legislation that passes has to have both of them. But the Senate is still in session. The Senate are grown-ups. The House are the children. It's the children's hour there. People got notices last month that student loans have come due. Now, the notices went out in September, and they usually go out 30 days before, 25 days before the loan is due. And so a lot of people will be shocked. People are going to have to pay between $200 and $500 a month. I don't know that many people have budgeted for an extra $200 to $500 a month. At the same time, people have had their loans frozen for the past 3 years because of COVID. And if they have the loans, they know that basically it's time to pay the piper. Well, there are a lot of people that are going to be very upset, and some will have some challenges because we still have rising gas prices and inflation. Although the unemployment rate is low, frankly, it's not that low. And contextually, a 3.7% unemployment rate ain't what it used to be. There are a whole lot of people who are sitting out of the labor market and they're not working. So we have to add that into the total equation. And there will be some economic hardship, and it may have long-term implications for the health of the economy. There are 28 million people, Lyndia, who are involved in this. Finally, we keep talking about, presidential politics. Trump and Biden are neck and neck in the polling. Neck and neck. There's 70% of all Americans say they feel that President Biden is too old to run again. So what are we left with? On the Democratic side, we have Marianne Williamson, who ran before, RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is about as nutty as a bed bug. And now we have a man named Gene Phillips from Minnesota, Democrat, member of the House of Representatives. He's resigned his leadership positions, and he says he's going to give Joe Biden, he hasn't announced that he's running, but he's leaning towards running, and he says someone's got to run, that he just thinks that Biden is too old and can't win. We'll see what happens with that. But we know what is happening on our side. On the D side, there's a new person to talk about. Lots of us have been talking about Gavin Newsom, but Gavin is working for President Biden. He's been stomping for him. So, frankly, with the House chaos, that trumps every other piece of news that we have. Those of us who are policy wonks and political junkies are waiting to see what's going to be next with the House of Representatives. That's it for me.
Thank you, Dr. Julian. We'll talk to you again next week. Now we'll go to our commercial break. We'll be back in a moment. Goodbye.
If it wasn't for my care coach at AmeriHealth, I probably wouldn't be so healthy right now. As a man, we don't get checkups or see a doctor regularly anyways. It's probably just a man thing because none of my partners go either. We know we should, but we just don't, and hope it works out.
So what changed for you?
AmeriHealth assigned me a care coach, somebody that gives one-on-one help, answer questions, explain things, and help set my appointments. She also helped me understand what having high blood pressure really means and ways to manage it so it doesn't kill me. It ain't nothing to play with. If you're a member of AmeriHealth, ask for a care coach. I'm glad I got mine.
At AmeriHealth, if you need a care coach, you can have one. Just call us at 1-877-759-6224 to get connected. 1-877-759-6224. This program is funded in part by the government of the District of Columbia Department of Healthcare Finance. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Washington and former religion columnist Lyndia Grant.
Who Moved My Cheese is a book about two types of people, those who accept change quickly and move on, and those who hem and haw and try to figure things out. They didn't see change coming and waste valuable time trying to figure out what happened. How did this happen to me? Let's call this group procrastinators. The lesson inside the cheese story is simple. Life is change. Brother said it best when he said, if I accept you as you are, I will make you worse. However, if I treat you as though you are what you're capable of becoming, I help you become that. We must change and keep moving. The Bible tells us to seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open unto you, ask and it shall be given.
Read more in the religion column of the Washington Informer, an award-winning African-American newspaper. We don't report crime or gossip, just positive news. Pick up the Washington Informer or visit us online at WashingtonInformer.com. Call 202-561-4100 for more information.
This is Frank Smith with the African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C., located at 1925 Vermont Avenue Northwest on the Green Line. Did you know that a recent study found that children who visit museums do better in school and in life than children who do not? So parents, teachers, and preachers, let's get moving. I promise you, if you bring your children to the African American Civil War Museum, they will be inspired by the images that they see. They will be impressed by our living history reenactors who are always available, and they will be involved in our scavenger hunt that takes them throughout our exhibit. That's the African American Civil War Museum, 1925 Vermont Avenue. Our hours are 10 to 6:30 on weekdays, 12 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. See it. Be inspired.
And we are back. You're listening to the Lyndia Grant Show. So happy that you could stay tuned and listen in to Dr. Adrienne Scott. I'm going to let her introduce herself. I always like to let you hear her video. So hold on just a moment. Let me play her opening.
My name is Dr. Adrienne Williams-Scott, and I am the Assistant Professor of Ophthalmology at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, Wilmer Eye Institute. It is also my pleasure to be the Medical Director of the Wilmer Eye Clinic in Bel Air, Maryland. I am a vitreoretinal surgeon and treat a broad variety of retinal diseases from the young adult to older adult age groups. Ophthalmology has always been an intriguing field to me, and I decided early on in medical school that ophthalmology is a field that would allow me to treat a wide variety of patients, a wide variety of ages, and also allow me to perform surgical techniques as well. Vitreoretinal surgery and diseases is particularly interesting to me because of the complex nature of the retina and the fantastic new imaging techniques that are available, in which we are learning more and more about patients with retinal diseases. I am currently involved in research, including research in age-related macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, and pathologic myopia or extreme nearsightedness. I also am interested in the patient-centered view of care. So, for example, how we can bring better care to service our patients with retinal diseases. As a retina specialist, it is important to me to bring a patient-centered care philosophy to you. It is important for me for you or your family member to understand the disease at play, the prognosis, and any options that we have for making the vision better. As a vitreoretinal surgeon, I perform office evaluations and surgeries at both the main Hopkins East Baltimore location and in the Harford County location located in Bel Air, Maryland.
All right. So that is Dr. Adrienne Scott's introduction. We thank her for that. And so I'm just going to, I didn't bother to do any questions, Dr. Scott, because I've been to your office a couple of visits, and I consider myself one of your patients. And love you so much because she also worked with me when I was doing diabetes training for AmeriHealth Caritas DC. So, Dr. Scott, let's just go ahead and get started and tell us whatever you want to tell us about diabetes retinopathy, and you can fix it like you're doing a seminar, whatever you want to tell us. And then if I have some questions at the end, I'll ask you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Grant. Again, it's a pleasure to be here and chat with you and your audience once more. It's important for us to know and understand that conditions like diabetes can not only affect every organ system in the body, but also all of the changes that diabetes can do to cause damage to the blood flow and circulation within the body can cause trouble and damage to the circulation within the eye. I'm a retina specialist, and that means that I specialize in the part of the eye that is the back lining of the eye, its nerve tissue. And if you imagine the eye as one of these old school cameras with film, the retina is nerve tissue that's film in the camera. Without a working retina, you cannot see well, and you cannot, see to function and perform your everyday duties. One of the challenges that we see happen is that sometimes somebody will have diabetes and not necessarily know that they have diabetes. And that's one of the most interesting things about being an eye doctor is that we can do certain techniques just with a dilated exam, and we can look in the back of the eyes and we can see that there's been some damage from diabetes, having high sugars over time, having high blood pressures over time, and other conditions like sickle cell disease, and various other types of conditions that can affect the body. So not only can they affect the body and the circulation, they can affect the circulation in the retina. And it's very important for any patient to know that if they're diagnosed with diabetes, they should get a full eye exam to make sure that they haven't had any sort of damage to their retina from the diabetes, having high sugars over time.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to tell the listeners, when I went over there, my eyes were blurred, and I had gotten off track, and my A1C had gotten up to 15, I think. And I could hardly see. I had to pull over across on the side of the road because I was scared I couldn't make it to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. But when I got checked out, Dr. Scott came. She had several people working with me. But after reviewing my record, she said, you don't have any damage. I was a blessed woman, and I'm so thankful because it was something I had done like once. I don't eat bad often, but evidently I had gotten off track, Dr. Scott. So it was a good thing that I went right and got myself checked out, and thank you for that.
Absolutely, yes, indeed. So you said it very well, Ms. Grant, is that there's a window which sugars are high that sometimes there can be blurry vision. The vision can fluctuate. Glasses you once thought fit and you could see well, they may not help you see well anymore. And that has everything to do with the sugars being too high or kind of fluctuating, going up and down more than they should. So if the sugars are up too high for a prolonged period of time, that's when you can get irreversible damage like diabetic retinopathy. And there are, fortunately, many things we can do to treat diabetic retinopathy. We have so many wonderful novel treatments to help people preserve their vision and even improve vision. But the best thing to do is to not develop retinopathy if possible. And you very correctly pointed out that it has everything to do with controlling that hemoglobin A1C over time. So I ask listeners to make sure that they talk to their medical doctor or endocrinologist and ask what the target hemoglobin A1C is for the particular individual. It may not be the same for everybody. Generally speaking, the medical doctors like the hemoglobin A1C to be 7% or under, and many of our studies show that the risk of diabetic retinopathy and vision loss is certainly less with a consistent hemoglobin A1C of 7 or under. But I would definitely ask your doctor who manages the sugars what your target should be and know that target.
And I just want to also say, listeners, my vision was so blurred I couldn't see my phone. It was hard to see the directions. I couldn't see phone numbers. It was frightening. I just was afraid she was getting ready to give me the worst news in the world. So I want you to know that you can bounce back even if something bad happens. But I did a whole lot more exercise, and I made sure my sisters kept me in North Carolina and was cooking bland food. And when I went back home, I said I get up every morning and run around the house and did my exercise. And we kept watching my blood sugar go down. And so I just want you all to know you can reverse it, but you have to know what you're doing. You got to check often, and you have to work at making it come down so you won't just linger, like she said, and that's when that retinopathy comes along. Am I right about that, Dr. Scott?
Yes, indeed. Very, very, very well said. Yes. So, there's a window at which your sugars are high where you can turn it around, and that's very important to send that message that you can do things. Just as you mentioned, Ms. Grant, the things that we love to hear is doctors or patients eating healthy, reducing sugars, knowing what is good to eat and what is harmful to eat. Sometimes people make the mistake and think things like lots of fruits are good, and sometimes that's okay, but sometimes there can be hidden sugars and things that you think could be healthy for you. So it's important to consult your doctor with good diet recommendations. Exercising, I love that you get up and exercise. That's everything. Just moving a little bit around every day also helps decrease your body fat, helps you produce your own insulin better, and helps your sugars to go down. And so sometimes just behavior modifications like diet and exercise can help you with sugar control, blood pressure control, and to keep you from being as reliant on various medications. And of course the doctor would recommend medications as needed, but it's wonderful if the patient can make those steps themselves. Also very important to not be a smoker. We know more and more research is coming out that cigarette smoke and tobacco and nicotine is like poison to the retinal circulation and the whole body really, but it's very detrimental to the eyes. So that's the other thing that you can do for yourself. It's not be a smoker, and if you smoke, please try to cut down because that is very damaging to the circulation.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time, and I thank you for being my guest today. We only have a 30-minute show, and when I have you on, we could go on and on, but I know we have given out some excellent information, and I hope that people that will get a copy of the show and share it. It's going to be on Facebook, and you can share it, and I even will email out some copies. So, but I thank you for being my guest today, Dr. Adrienne Scott, the medical director, the head of the clinic at the Wilmer Eye Institute in Bel Air, Maryland. And we thank you so much for being our guest today.
My pleasure, Ms. Grant. Thank you for having me.
Well, that does it for our show this week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and never miss an episode. A copy will be sent to you on YouTube automatically, and read my column in the Washington Informer newspaper. Call us at 240-602-6295. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. I hope this show gave you some new insight on type 2 diabetes, and I hope you enjoyed the commentary by Dr. Julianne Malvo. Next week, we're going to have attorney Dana Stebbins. She's going to be back on the show to talk a little bit about what's going on in our courts and with our former president. Stay tuned. I'm happy to invite you all out this month to the All Nations Baptist Church Women's Day program, where we will honor about 15 or more outstanding achievers, foot soldiers we call them. Our guest speaker is the Honorable Mayor Kashina Cross. She is the mayor of Glen Arden, Maryland. A very dynamic speaker. I'm inviting you to come out and join us. Our pastor is the Reverend Dr. James Coleman. We're located at number 2, Rhode Island Avenue, Northeast, Washington, D.C. Our Women's Day is coming up in 2 weeks, Sunday, October the 15th, 2023 at 10 a.m. Earl Nightingale once said, "Words, thoughts, and deeds have a boomerang effect, so be careful what you send out. We do become what we think about." And Scripture says, "My people perish for the lack of knowledge." So think on these things. From the Lyndia Grant Show, I'm your host, Lyndia Grant. Until next week, good day.
Thank you for listening to the Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with your host, Lyndia Grant.